Hello, everybody. Coming back for a weekly live. I'm about to get my man Justin here. Wait up on him a little bit. As you can see, for Valentine's Day, the wifey got me a little present. Let's see, waiting for a couple of y'all to hop on, and then me and Justin will get rolling. Justin, let me know when you're in here so I can add you, buddy. How's everybody doing on this Valentine's Day? What's up, Jen? What's up, Kevin? What's up, Gary, Luis, Christian, Lenny, Jimmy? Dang, already got 16 people on here. That's pretty quick. 18. Let's get it going. Let's try to get about 50 people in here. What's up, Bob? What's up, Christian? How's your Valentine's Day? How's everything going? I'm about to talk about our my first true love, the Mets. I don't know if it was your first true love. If it is, give us a like. As you can see, I'm sporting the beanie. Got to. It's cold. All right, Ty. You can keep that. I don't need it. I don't want it. Like I told you, wait till we beat them in the NLCS. You're gonna love it. You're gonna cry, and I'm gonna eat up those tears. Mauricio got us a question here. Did you see the new kid that was traded for over starting? What are you talking about? You're talking about the kid that we got from Kansas City, the center fielder, Khalil Lee. Is that who you're talking about? If so, just give me a yes, and I'll respond to that. All right, Justin, got my man Justin on here.
Hello, hello.
Yo, what's going on, Justin? How you doing, man?
Nothing much. I'm good. How are you?
I'm good, good. Sporting the beanie, man. It's cold out here. I got to.
Yeah, I'm in Port St. Lucie, so it's been all right. It's raining a little bit though, back to
What?
back days.
Man, that's nothing compared to what's going on over here in the Northeast. Man. All right, so let's give these guys a couple minutes, get settled in, and then we'll start talking some Mets. Just let's give them a couple
All
seconds.
right.
We already had a question on here from Mauricio. I think he's talking about Khalil Lee, um, as far as who we got over a starting pitcher. I was gonna answer him, but if you want to give him some info, if you have some info on him, if you want to touch on it, go ahead.
So the question was, do you see the new kid that was traded over starting?
Yeah, so I'm assuming he means starting pitching, because the kid we got was Khalil Lee, so I'm assuming that's who he's talking about.
Yeah. Honestly, he might not be a Met that long. Um, I think. Well, first of all, they keep swooping in these three-team trades and kind of robbing these teams. They did it with Lucchesi, and here they gave up one of the players they got back in the match trade and a player to be named later for a top 10 prospect who's going to be a top 10 prospect in this system as well. And it's at a position of need that they need in the organization. Really, there's no center field depth at all. The center fielder we have now isn't even a center fielder. We don't have a center fielder on the MLB roster. Well, now we do with Almora, but not a starting caliber one. Um, so honestly, he might not be a Met that long. He might be in a Chris Bryant trade. We'll see. Um, but it's a nice move. They've made a lot of good moves this offseason. This is another one of those smart moves that I don't think are made with the Wilpons in charge. So we'll see what they do with him. They do need center field depth, and he's a guy that will contribute to the MLB team at some point this year. He'll probably start the season in AAA. He'll be a guy we'll likely see in a couple of weeks in spring training when the games start. But also at the same time, He might go to Chicago or Cincinnati. So we'll see.
Yeah, I agree with you, and we'll touch about this a little bit more. And I think he may not be a Met for long. I think we might flip him for somebody that we were able to start right away. And the reason being, we have a kid, PCA, Pete Crow Armstrong, that we drafted. I think he's going to be our future in center field. And I think they're grooming him to probably have him up in the show in about 3 years or so, to be honest. So I don't think he's going to be around that long. I'm talking about Lee. He may stick around, maybe move him later on, but I don't think he's gonna be around too long.
Yeah, the key thing with Lee is he's a guy that at some point this year is going to contribute, whether it's at a fourth outfielder type, or hopefully not. But if there are a couple of injuries, you might see him start. But he's a guy that's going to come up. He's really fast. Some swing and miss in his swing. Um, but top 10 prospect, and we just got a top 10 prospect for a pitcher that wasn't on the team 3 weeks ago and a player to be named later, which can't be revealed in about, I think, in a couple months. So that usually means it's not like one of these, not like one of these guys we just drafted that are really good. It's probably a lower level prospect. So I like it. I know Charlie. What's up, Charlie? Charlie's asking, what about trading our catching prospect? I'm assuming you mean Alvarez. Under no instance should the Mets trade Alvarez right now. That guy is the catching version. I don't want to compare him to Kalenic, who I think is the second-ranked prospect in the entire farm system right now. But he's the next guy that in a couple years he's going to be a top 20, top 10 prospect. He's like 19, already advanced at the plate, can throw, can receive pitches pretty well, but the bat, if he walks more, could be elite. So this is a guy you really don't trade. And Sandy expressed that they really don't want to trade their top prospects. And I think Alvarez is probably the best, highest upside prospect we have. You can make an argument for Allen or Ginn. I agree, but I heard he was traded. From who? One of those fake Ken Rosenthal tweets? I don't know.
Yeah, yeah.
Hopefully
I
they
haven't
don't
seen
trade
that.
him unless they get a great player for multiple years of control. But he's a guy that you hold on to. At the end of the day, no team has ever won with a below average first baseman or a below average third baseman and two outfield playing out of position. When it comes down to it, the only thing the Mets.
The only I'll continue. The only thing that Mets spent money on this all season was a catcher that wasn't even a starter until last season, and 2 relief picks.
Well, they're paying Lindor $22 million for this year. In no way do the Mets have a below-average first baseman. They made the World Series with a broom at shortstop in 2015 in Flores. So
and
I
also
mostly
and also a
attribute
below
the
average
two
first,
outfield.
and also a below average first baseman, and what was his name? It slipped out of my mind. I just had it. Well, he made the throwing error to the home plate.
Duda.
There you go. So
Yeah. I don't know if I'd say Duda's below average, but I get your point. He wasn't great defensively. But yeah, I mean, the Mets made the World Series with Flores at shortstop, Granderson, who was a corner outfielder, he was in center field. Below average defensively. Well, it depends who's playing first base. If you have a DH, Dom Smith is playing first base, and no way is he below average defensively. So, I mean, the Mets in 2015 made the World Series. They had one of the worst defenses in the league. I mostly get your point. I think they do need to address the defense. I think they will. Jackie Bradley Jr. is still out there. One of these, third baseman, if they can get Bryant or Suarez, that's an upgrade, both offensively and defensively. So we'll see. I think the defense is astronomically better. Lindor makes the defense astronomically better. So does McNeil at second. Robinson Cano cannot move. He's no longer the second baseman this year. McNeil's the second baseman. So the up-the-middle defense on the infield is much better. I agree with third base. JD is not it defensively. And And I agree with left and center. I think they need to address that. Really, it's super simple to address the outfield. If you just get the DH to sign JBJ, Nimmo goes to left, Dom's the first baseman, Alonso's DH. Super simple. But we'll see.
All right, so let's start talking about the topics that brought us here today. We answered a couple of questions. Um, First off, the biggest news of all that we heard earlier in the week: Seth Lugo being injured. Picking up the baseball for probably the first time all off season or whatever, doing some light throwing, and he found out that he had something going on with his elbow. He thought it was a lot bigger or a lot serious than what it really was. Thank God it's something to where he's only going to be out about, a month and a half or so, maybe longer. I would say probably about 2 months, just to give him time. Don't need to rush it. How is that going to impact our bullpen, Justin? How is that going to impact our team, man? Let them know.
Well, he's the best reliever on the team. He's been the most consistent reliever on the team for the last couple of years. He's been a top 10 reliever in baseball. They had a little stretch there where they put him in the rotation. That's not where he's most valuable to this team. And really, this is a team that is kind of thin in the bullpen. Familia and Betances are question marks. I think Diaz will be really good. You have Loop. You have May is solid. But it's a huge loss. I think he's one of the most valuable players on the team. He's the guy that, Stroman on one day goes 6 innings, 1 run, and it's 1-0 in the 7th, and he comes in there and goes 2 scoreless and gets you to the 9th. So it's going to be it's going to be much harder now to get the ball to Diaz. You're going to see a lot of Loop, a lot of May. You're going to see Betances and Familia move up an inning. Everybody moves up an inning. Coming into the season, Diaz is at the 9th inning. Lugo is at the 8th, sometimes 7 and 8. Everybody moves up. Now, May is probably in the 8th. Familia is in the 7th. Betances is the 6th. So it just thins the bullpen that was already thin. So it's a huge loss. This is, this is kind of one of those things where you get injured in spring training, or in this case, right before it, and you're just kind of behind the entire season. I mean, best case scenario, he's not going to touch a baseball until late March. So he's going to be out all of April, probably most of May, halfway of May. That's best case scenario. We might not see him until June. So we'll see. It's a huge loss. However, they do have a bunch of options. Rosenthal's out there. Also, you add a Kyle Hendricks or a Sonny Gray, if you make one of these trades, then you're 5 deep in the rotation. You've got 5 guys that can all go 6 or 7 innings. That helps. But Trevor Rosenthal's out there. He had a great year. I would imagine they look at him. That would be the smart move. But it's a big loss. It's not one that should be understated. It's a gigantic loss.
Yeah, I agree. And Charlie over here saying Seth ain't no big deal. Charlie, it is a huge deal. Remember before we even put Lugo in the pen, how bad our pen was. And when he was put into the pen, how much stability he gave that pen. It's a huge loss. Yeah, we went out to sign a couple of pitchers, to help out in the pen, probably to bridge that gap between Lugo, between the starter pitching and Lugo, so Lugo wouldn't have to pitch that much. Because remember, Lugo really can't go 2 nights in a row. We don't see him that many 2 nights in a row. Yes, he may go 2 innings, but he won't pitch the next game, and that has to do with his arm. He is our most consistent, like Justin said, our most consistent bullpen guy for the past 2 years. And he is the only pitcher in that pen that I trust coming in any situation, facing any batter in any lineup, and he can get them out via strikeout, via however you want to put it. I don't trust Familia the way I trust Lugo. I don't trust Betances the way I trust Lugo. Betances may have a comeback year. He was coming off an injury last year, but that's up in the air. We don't know what we're going to get out of him this year. Lugo being out is huge. We cannot state it enough, and I hope it really is only until the end of April. Maybe May he comes back. Who knows? At this point, with him being our best bullpen guy, do you really want to rush him back? I say no, let him take his time. Maybe we fill in the void with somebody in the free agent wire, maybe for a month or so, but we need him. If we're going to go places, we need him to be the Lugo that he was these past 2 years, and that's that. Him being out is huge for us in the bad way, not in any good type of way. You got
Yeah,
anything to add to that, Justin?
yeah. Don't forget he's also been pitching with a partially torn UCL for the last couple of years, so that'll probably prolong this process. Want to be really careful with him. Um, I mean, you nailed it. It's a gigantic loss. He makes everything easier. There are days where like you have a DeGrom start, DeGrom goes 7, Lugo goes 2, the game is over. You know, he's a gigantic weapon. He eases everything in the bullpen, and now they don't have that guy that can lock things down for 2 innings. It's huge.
Yeah, yeah. So let's answer these couple questions before we go on to the next thing. Neil asked the question: is a qualifying offer still on the table for Lindor, or being that he was traded to us, that is off the table?
I honestly don't know. I think what's going to happen is he's going to be a Met for the next 10 years, starting in a couple weeks. So we'll see. I think they'd be really dumb to not extend him. That those extensions usually happen in spring training because everybody's there. It's why you don't see a lot of them in the off season because the GM and the owner and the agents are all in different places. In spring training, they're all going to be there in Port St. Lucie. Although it might be a little different this year where they hop on Zoom. Um, but I would imagine Lindor gets extended in a couple weeks. Hopefully the same is for Conforto. I know Zach Scott said they are looking to extend those guys. Like I said, they usually happen in spring training. Bets happened in spring training last year. DeGrom was extended 2 days before opening day. So we'll see. I really don't know to answer your question. Um, did did uh did the Dodgers qualifying offer Machado after they traded for him?
I don't remember, and to be honest, I don't know if that's something they can or cannot do. I don't know. That's a good question. It's something I got to look into. But like you said, I mean, at this point, it really doesn't even matter. I expect them to sign him for at least 8 years, if not 8, 10 years, like you said. Keep him until he's basically done playing baseball. We have to. And just imagine how good our up the middle defense is with him at shortstop and McNeil at second base. Now we have a kid, Mauricio, coming up, and he's our number one prospect, and he's a lot younger than Francisco Lindor. We can easily move Francisco to second base and have Mauricio in shortstop, or the other way around. And imagine how much better our up the middle defense is going to be if that happens.
Yeah,
That's
and keep
good.
going. I was just gonna say Mauricio is 3 years away from being a big leaguer. You know,
Yeah.
he's a guy, and you let him develop, and he's a chip you can trade at the deadline if the Mets are one piece away in like 2022 or 2023. Mauricio really, it's not like, oh, we don't think we're gonna extend Lindor, so we're just gonna hold on to Mauricio. They traded for Lindor with the intention of extending him, so the owner is worth $14 billion. They should extend him. If they don't, then it's really a ton of dysfunction on the Mets side. But Mauricio really doesn't have much to do with it, if anything.
Yeah, I agree. And Justin, to answer your question, it says I don't think they're going to sign Lindor as quick as you think they are, because if they were that confident, they wouldn't be holding on to Ronnie Mauricio. Well, it's not really a question, but I'm gonna say I think they're holding on to him exactly for what Justin said. He's 3 years away. Let him develop. We have Lindor. If we do extend Lindor, then Mauricio just develops and learns from Lindor. Who better to learn from than Lindor? And like you said, if we're only a piece away, whether it's an arm, a bullpen guy, or even a position player, we can easily let Mauricio go because we have Lindor for 10 years.
Yeah,
So it's a win-win. You can't really go wrong there.
yeah, and keep in mind, Mauricio might be a guy that has to move to third anyways. He's so far away from the big leagues that I don't even think it's a thought for the Mets. I think they like the prospect and would like to hold on to him. But at the same time, it's not like, well, let's hold on to Mauricio in, just in case we don't extend Lindor. I mean, they're going to extend Lindor. They should. If they don't, they're going to sign one of the shortstops available next offseason, whether it's Lindor, Story, whatever. But 90% chance they probably extend Lindor. Um, and Mauricio might be a guy in a couple years where you're looking at, well, we need a third baseman, and Mauricio, he's a guy that might move to third. He's a little big for shortstop, so we'll see. But nice problem to have.
All right, so let's go to our next subject. We're gonna play a little game here. We're gonna play, probably one of our biggest fantasies here as a Mets fan. Whether it's biggest fantasy would probably be owning the Mets, right? Probably the second biggest would be being GM. Now, I got a question for you, Justin. If you were GM or owner, whatever however you want to put it, where would you choose to upgrade the team? Would it be at center field, meaning moving Nimmo over to left, getting a center fielder? Would it be getting a starting pitcher, or would it be getting a third baseman? Let's see what you got to say, and then I'll give you what I got, and then guys, you chime in the comments.
Okay, I have a couple questions. Are we assuming there is a DH or is not a DH?
We're going with what we have, meaning no DH.
And I have to pick one, right? I can't, because we can knock two of those birds with one stone with a trade. So I have to pick one.
One and one only. Assuming that in a trade you only get Chris Bryant, and assuming that in another trade you only get a center fielder or a starting pitcher, whoever's available.
Okay, so I would pick Bryant at third if we're just picking one. Because then you really would get the most upside guy. Bryant's won an MVP. He's coming off a down year. He played with a wrist injury and a hand injury, so I really think he's primed for a huge year. Going to be a free agent after this year. In a Bryant trade, he's probably strictly a rental, because the Mets have so many guys to extend, unless they prefer to extend Bryant over Conforto, but we'll see if they even get him. I mean, right now he's a Cub. So, but that's who I would pick. You can live, I guess, with Nimmo and Dom in center and left if the offense is the best in the league. I think you're adding Bryant. I mean, the lineup does need a right-handed bat. You add Bryant. JD also goes on the bench. He's not a starting caliber defensive player anywhere. He's a DH. So
who's that, JD?
JD Davis.
Mm-hmm.
So you move him to the bench, and then you have a really valuable bench bat to go with Villar, who's not nearly the bat JD is. He's really more of a kind of a contact speed guy. Though I think 1 year he had 20 home runs. That was with the ball on steroids. So I would pick Bryant. He's probably the best player available at this point. You can make an argument for Suarez. I wouldn't disagree. I think they're neck and neck. I would just pick Bryant because he's the former MVP on a contract year, has been a great hitter throughout his entire career. Just not last year because he dealt with some injuries. So that's who I would go, and I'd stick with the rotation as is and the outfield as is, and get the upside guy that really, makes your lineup virtually unstoppable.
Yeah, that's a good choice, but I would go a different route, and here's why. We're going based off of and talking about JD as far as him not playing third really off of a year and a third, maybe. So remember his first real season as far as being a third baseman was 2019. In 2019, he was clutch. He was really good for us. Not as far as defensively, whether playing left or third base, but I'm saying at the plate. You're right. He's a DH, but in that we have Lindor now, I think his range or his mobility won't really matter as much from the center, meaning to his left. I think Lindor covers that gap to where he only has to really worry about what's hit to his right, meaning down the line or somewhat, maybe a little bit to the left. I think Lindor would cover a lot of that range. Lindor just has so much range and is an outstanding defensive player to where I think it, closes that gap a little bit for him. I'm okay with leaving. I'm getting more and more daily okay with having Smith and left. And I say this because we really need his bat in the lineup, and I'm hoping that his bat does and outweighs what he's going to do out in the field. He 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 wasn't terrible. Let's go that way, but he wasn't okay or good. I guess you can say.
Yeah.
Out in left. So I'm okay, and I'm leaning towards that. I think I would have to go with starting pitcher. Let's bridge the gap because we don't know what we're gonna get out of Thor yet. And that's a huge question mark in our starting rotation. We talked about it last week. I think I'm okay with them signing either Jake Odorizzi or even Walker. And I think what you hit the nail on the head last week with Odorizzi and what he did with our pitching coach at Minnesota. When he had his best year, he in 2019 he went 15-7, man, and that's huge. And if he can do that or even come close to that as our third or fourth starter, or wherever you want to slot him in, that would be fantastic. And he can close the gap to Thor, and maybe even stay in the rotation and put Peterson in the pen as a long reliever. Who knows? But I'm just throwing out some stuff that can happen if we were to sign him. I'm okay with, like I said, in other lives, I'm okay with leaving Nimmo on left. I'm more so worried about Nimmo in center, and more so worried about Smith being in left. But at this point in time, without having a DH, I think we're gonna need Smith in the lineup no matter what. You saw what his bat brings to the lineup. Same thing goes with JD, and not having a DH. Yeah, we're gonna be weak on the left side of the field. So let's upgrade, the pitching staff and close that gap with Thor, to Thor. I think starting pitching may be the way to go. And, what do they say? Pitching usually wins you and gets you longer in the long run than anything else. I would say so.
Yeah, I think the thing with the rotation is if you have to pick one, you feel comfortable with Syndergaard coming back and kind of living with what you have, which is still really good for a half of a season. And I think a huge thing with the pitching is they've added so much depth that they can live with an injury even as of now with Yamamoto, and Lucchese's the fifth starter right now, but with Yamamoto and what they've got in AAA and Syracuse, you can live with it. Kilame should be back. I just look at Bryant, and he's really the best player you could get. He has the most upside. A lot of people are really down on him because of last year, but really, he's a really good player. And with JD Davis, yes, you have Lindor at short, but we've seen here that he's just not a good defensive player in left. He's terrible at third. I think it was like a minus 11 DRS. That is awful.
Yeah.
So you get Bryant, JD, and also JD really wasn't that great of a hitter last year either. I think his slugging percentage was under 400, which isn't great. You're getting Chris Bryant, who hits 30 home runs a year. So I without a DH, you kind of go, well, if you're just picking one, we're gonna have a below average defense. So let's just create an unstoppable offense, and you can do that with Bryant. And I would go that way.
If I were to go any other way, I would go that way. Now, and we also touched this last week. The biggest difference between us and the Braves is defensively. There's a huge gap there. Like we talked, basically our starting pitching is better. Our lineups wash, but defensively it's not even close. And if we were to go any other route, I would go that route. I would live with Smith and left. And Omar answered our question here. It says players traded mid-season can't receive a qualifying offer. There you go.
What about before the season? Because I know Bauer, the Reds traded for Bauer, and they got the QO on him this year, but they had him for a year and a half. So I'm wondering before the season, can you QO him? I don't think this is going to matter. He's just going to decline it if we ever get to that point. But I'm just wondering.
All right, let's get to some of the comments. Justin here says, no, trade for a center field, move Nemo over. JD has like 3 more years, team control, and then trade with Tampa for center fielder Merriman. Yeah, I mean, that's a situation maybe to get into down the line, but I
Gary,
mean,
you can just sign Jackie Bradley Jr. and
yeah,
not give up the prospect.
that too. And then Gary says Brian is overpaid. He is not worth his salary. I mean, you can't really say that. You know, he's an MVP player, and I mean, he just makes the lineup and that defense, better. Like Justin said, he had one down year, and there was this last year short year. You can't really go off of that. Look at his line of work and what he's done. He's a good player, man. Justin also says if JD isn't any good by trade deadline, then we trade for a third baseman. Yeah, that's an option
Why would
too.
you wait? Why would you wait? That's kind of the thing. You have Chris Bryant available now. Why would you wait until the trade deadline? You don't have any idea who's available at the trade deadline. What if Chris Bryant gets traded to another team in a week? I mean, you really don't know. If you have a chance to get him, get him.
Yep. I mean, that's a good point. That's a very good point. And then Omar says, I'm not a Odorizzi fan. Bigger upside Walker. He actually was pitching sensational. Who without relying on 96 plus mile per hour fastball. That's a good point, Omar. He did pitch really well. I believe the last 2 seasons, if I'm not mistaken, for the Mariners. Um, so now we want to get to one last thing before we head out. Spring training. They position players have to report. Is it no? Is the starting the pitchers have to report on the 17th, three
Pitchers and
days away.
catchers.
Pitchers and catchers, yeah. We saw somebody. We saw a couple of players already there early. So Nimmo, McCann, and I think Fordo maybe was there already.
So McNeil, McCann, and Nimmo are there.
There you go.
Um,
Those were the three that I saw taking batting practice. So we got news that a couple people were invited to spring training. Young kids that we got. We're gonna hit a little bit on them and how exciting it is to have our farm system actually top 5 pretty good players and them invited to spring training to see what we got. Go ahead, Justin. Start it off, man.
so it's cool. Allen's gonna be there. I saw Pete Crow. I'm not sure if it's Crow or Crow. PCA. I'll just call him.
Let's go with that.
Is gonna be there. That's pretty cool. The Mets are really good at drafting. The scouting department is really, really good. You look at all the guys on the team. Most of them are homegrown guys. Dom, Nimmo, Conforto, Alonso, DeGrom, Syndergaard. Syndergaard they traded for, but they essentially developed him. They traded for him when he was like in low A ball. So it's exciting. The Mets are really good at drafting, man. They're really good at it. So it's good to see these guys. I'm not sure if JT Ginn is on that list, but they stole him in the second round. Allen, same thing. Those were first round prospects that they just took in the second and paid, gave them higher salary money. I'm not sure what the term is. Beatty's there. That's another guy that you can see maybe at third base in a couple of years. I know he's got a really good bat. First round pick 2 years ago. So it's exciting. That's kind of what spring training is for, to get these young guys involved. Really, the proof. You have some competitions as well, but especially on this team, most of everything is pretty set as of now. So you've got your Alonsos and Lindors. They're just trying to get going. DeGrom's trying to get his pitches up. Same with Carrasco, which will be a little fun. It'll be fun to see him pitch every 5 days. But it's awesome to get these guys experience. And yeah, I think in a couple of years, the Mets are really strong at the lower levels of the minors. They're weak in the upper levels because Brody Van Wagenen traded everybody.
Yeah.
But in a couple of years, you're gonna start if you didn't make those trades, the Mets would have a top 10 farm system right now. I think in a couple of years, when you get more drafts and Beatty and Pete and PCA and Ginn and Allen, these guys are like in Double A, Triple A. The farm system is going to be really good. So it'll be fun to see these guys. They're all high draft pick, talented guys that will probably start for the Mets one day. I definitely think Ginn and Allen are probably two guys that will end up in the rotation in a couple years. Um, so yeah, it's awesome to see. So it'll be fun.
Yeah, man, I'm really really interested in seeing these kids. Ginn was not invited. Only the top 5 prospects were, I believe. Um, I'm gonna read off the list here. Ronnie Mauricio, he's our #1 prospect, as we all know. He's only 19 years old, and prior to us getting Lindor, he's basically in the position of need at shortstop. But now that we have Lindor, like you said, he's going to probably move over to whether the third or whether it's second, whatever. But he was a position of need, and he was coming up in our lower levels, and he's gonna be in the show probably in about, like you said, 3 years. I would say 2 to 3 years he's gonna be there. Whether it's gonna be third or short, or if we trade him for a piece that we need, whatever. But he's coming. Um, Francisco Alvarez, you touched on him too earlier. He's another prospect. He's second in our farm system, and he's only 19, man. 19 years old, both of these kids, and they're 1 and 2, and they're if they stick around, they're gonna be our future, and that's being 19. That's awesome. We already have a catcher that we have signed for what 4 years? Believe McCann signed for 3 4 years.
Yeah,
Okay, so we have Alvarez that can learn behind McCann for those years, and then when he's ready to take over, he takes over. We have Batty that's at third baseman. If we get rid of Mauricio, or if we don't, we move him to second base. Whatever we wind up doing there, but he's going to probably be our third baseman in the future. He's only 21. That he's young too, up and coming. He's going to be our third baseman of the future. Like you said, Allen, he's a right-handed pitcher. He's at full A ball, and he's only 19. He probably is gonna be in our rotation sooner or later, along with Ginn. And then we got PCA, who we drafted this year, and I believe he's gonna be our center fielder of the future. He's only 19. He's only 18 years old. We just drafted the kid, and there's a lot to say about him, and a lot to say about our future coming up and coming future. Excuse me. Don't forget the nucleus that we have now. Whether we're talking about Conforto, McNeil, Smith, Alonso, they're all relatively young, and they're really, all of them played their first year together 2019. So 2020 was really a short year. We can't go based off of that, because you see they're gelling right now, and they're getting comfortable with each other. This team is becoming a really really good team that just added a lot of experience with Villar, excuse me, and with also adding with keeping all of these guys together, these kids together. And if they're able to do that with the second wave of kids coming up, and these kids can take over for, let's say, whoever we're gonna have at third base with Batty, with Nimmo moving over to left, and PCA taking over in center field, and then Mauricio taking over at second base, and leaving Lindor at shortstop, or putting him at shortstop, and however you want to play it. But these kids are going to learn from people that were brought up in our organization and love the Mets and playing for the Mets, and that's awesome. You heard what Cohen wanted to do, and you already see that he's kind of already doing it in the lower levels of A ball and stuff. And as they come up, and we're gonna be drafting better, like you said, Justin, we're gonna be getting kids their age now, when they're about 24, 23, and they're ready to play in the big leagues. And now they're gonna show those younger kids. That's awesome. It's an awesome time to be a Mets fan and not get excited about how you not excited about the second wave of nucleus that's about to come. And they're going to be some good players, especially because they have people to learn from.
yeah, it's gonna be fun to see these guys go through the minor leagues. Hopefully, I know the season is delayed. Hopefully, not too much, because Mauricio lost a year because of that. It really sucks. A lot of guys lost a year of that, not just him. But yeah, it's a lot of fun. Like kind of when we went through that hard stretch from '09 to 2014, really the saving grace was the farm system. All these pitchers, Harvey, Wheeler, Matt kind of came out of nowhere. DeGrom, like nobody knew about DeGrom when he was coming up. It was Montero, and then he
Hmm.
comes up his rookie year. So Syndergaard, Syndergaard was huge. He was like the big time prospect. He was the number one prospect at some point because Harvey and Wheeler were already in the big leagues. Um, but you had all those pitchers coming up, and now here you might have these position players coming up with PCA, Beatty, Mauricio Alvarez. Alvarez is that guy is a stud, man. He is going to be a guy where if he develops the way we think he's going to develop, the Mets might have one of the best hitting catchers in baseball. Might have one of the best catchers in baseball. He is a stud. I think Keith Law already has him in his top 20 prospects, or top 50. But he is crazy. I think he's going to be amazing. So got to be patient. They're going to have their up and downs. I mean, it's the minor leagues. These guys, it's so crazy the difference from the NFL. The NFL, one guy gets drafted, you're like, okay, that dude is starting for them. In baseball, you get drafted, like, well, he gets drafted in 2020. You're like, okay, I'll see you in the big leagues in 2024. You know, so it's interesting, but it's exciting to see these guys come up, and it's going to be exciting to watch more Mets draft picks in the future, especially as the team is good. It's not like you're going through a rebuild and your only hope is the farm system. What's going to happen probably is you've got this really good team, and you also have a really good up-and-coming farm system as well. So that'll be really fun.
A la San Diego Padres, a la also uh, the LA Dodgers. These teams are good now they're good now and will be good in the future because of what they have done. And you got to give, props where it's due. And, Cohen said that's exactly what he wants to do, and he's slowly doing it. But the only difference is that the Mets have been good at drafting for a while now. And you could see that going back to what you said, Wheeler, DeGrom, picking up Thor. I mean, yeah, we didn't draft him, but like you said, we traded for him when he was in like double A ball, and we developed him. And look at him now; he would be an ace in a lot of rotations. If it wasn't for Degrom, he would be our ace. Thankfully for
Mm-hmm.
Degrom, we have him, or whatever the Mets you want to say, we have him, and he's the best pitcher in baseball. But they're good at drafting. That's what we do. Unfortunately, our past GM gave up. Yeah, we were not going to say his name. We already know who we gave up in the Cano trade, but it is what it is. We can't take it back, and all we can do is build from here on out.
Yeah, yeah, that trade, man. We wouldn't be talking about center field if it wasn't for that trade. But I know
Exactly.
Edgar or Omar here is saying it's the reason why I don't see the Braves winning the NL East with Soroka on the shelf, a full season with the rotation. It's Max Fried, Morton, and nothing else. Is Soroka out for the year? I know he tore his Achilles, but that was what, in August? Yeah,
Something like that. Yeah.
they do have Ian Anderson, who just came in and was really good for him last year. That's another one of those teams where they're really good and then had some good prospects, and they're immediate, contributors. So we'll see. I think it's neck and neck with the Mets and Braves. It would be really cool to see Sandy and Zach finish this offseason off with another nice move of like Bryant or something like that. Suarez, get a pitcher with them. Um, Thankfully, the move wasn't Bauer. Um, but we'll see. They've missed out on a couple guys. Missed out on Paxton. Hill would have been a really nice get. He doesn't go deep into games, but he's just consistently good.
Yeah.
So we'll see. Some options available. We're like 2 days away from spring training, and there's no DH. So I doubt there's going to be a DH, which means Jackie Bradley's probably not going to be a Met. You just can't bench. Really, it comes down to benching one of Smith or Alonso. I think Nimmo is a bona fide starter. You can say comes down to benching him too, but really, he would likely just move to left because he's the best on-base guy on the team, one of the best hitters on the team as well. So
Well, I
we'll
wanna,
see,
I
but
wanna, I wanna bring that subject up in a later show because I was already thinking that if we had to make a decision. So hold that thought. Let's not talk about that yet. I want to bring that up in a later show. That's a good subject to talk about. Um, so guys, before we go, just want to say, we're bringing you the shows weekly. We couldn't go yesterday, so we're going today. We're going to bring you another show next weekend. Also, this will be uploaded by our IT guy to YouTube. Please check us out. Go ahead and like the channel, like our videos. Whatever you want to do. Just please follow us. We're gonna be doing more giveaways here soon. You see all the commercials that we're posting for you guys, all the content and everything. Just if you like what you see, give us a like. Tell your friends. We're all crazy about the Mets. We're diehard Mets fans. We bleed orange. So just tell all your friends to follow us and come join us on our live next week. You got anything to add on that, Justin?
yeah, these have been fun. I've been doing them for 2 weeks. Excited for next week. Excited to see. We've already started seeing some players in Port St. Lucie. I'm in Port St. Lucie, so can't wait to go to some games. I know that there'll be 25% capacity at the stadiums, so that'll be fun. Hopefully we get some baseball soon. Hopefully next week we're talking about some moves, some free agent moves, and not one of our best players getting hurt. But yeah, these are awesome, and I'm excited for next week.
Every year, but it wouldn't be the Mets if it wasn't every year, right?
Yeah, last year Syndergaard. Before 2015, it was Wheeler. DeGrom had something before in spring training in 2016. I think, or was it? He might have just had a son. I don't know. But DeGrom had something in one of the spring trainings. But man,
He
it
he
feels like
wasn't
it.
sleeping on like a comfortable mattress. He had like a stiff neck or a messed up back or
Oh, that's
something
right.
like
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
Something only a Mets player gets.
yeah.
Anyway,
Exactly.
Omar gave us a final thought here. Give 90% MLB edition a plug. He's talking about you being at Point St. Lucie.
Huh?
You're gonna be our MLB plug over there at Port St. Lucie.
Yeah,
He
yeah,
said.
yeah. Yeah, I'll be the insider. I got connects. I'll be the insider. I'll try to get in.
There you go. All right, guys. Let's go Mets. We'll see you next week. All right, Justin.
All right.